With The Walking Dead Saints and Sinners Chapter 2, Retribution, releasing tomorrow, you may want to brush up on the story in the first game. Maybe you forgot what happens, maybe you never played it, or maybe you just never finished it. Chapter 2, Retribution, is going to build on the world established in the first game, and so to prepare you for that, I present the full story of The Walking Dead Saints and Sinners Chapter 1. We're an outsider, a tourist coming to see the beauty offered in the magical city of New Orleans. But it's not the jazz or Cajun cuisine that draws us here. On the outskirts of town, Henri, a local, tells us of the reserve. You see, just before the disease started and walkers were rampant, New Orleans had a massive flood. Hurricanes aren't uncommon in the area, and while the disaster relief was in progress, a different sort of disaster took the world. And while everyone fought over the available supplies to survive the walkers, there's a rumor of a giant cache of supplies known as the reserve. We're talking food, medicine, military-grade weapons just sitting there waiting to be claimed. And Henri, already close to getting it, is asking for us to help him and his old bones.
There would be a 50-50 split in the future. I ain't greedy, and I ain't no fool.
As we ride into New Orleans on our boat and on our way to meet up with Henri, walkers overtake us. We somehow survive and get to the shore at the cemetery where we hope to find Henri. And along the way, we don't just see walkers, we actually find dead reclaimed and tower soldiers. And it appears the worst is true. The two factions came down on Henri all at once, knowing that he was onto something. And as he hangs there, he leaves us with one final request.
Do me a solid. The bus, all I got, all I've done, don't let it go to waste. I'm begging you. Help the kid, huh? Come on. 50-50 still stands, huh? They get mine, understand? They're the only ones who deserve it.
Who's this woman and his daughter? Who's he talking about? We move on through the cemetery to find the bus where Henri was camped out. And in the bus, we learn that Henri was trying to fix a radio so that he could contact Station 61 with the code Waterfall. He thinks there still might be someone at the reserve, and using this military code he found, we might be able to get in contact with them. But to do that, we need a microphone, and Henri thinks that we can find one at the Blue Palace in the Shallows. Heading into the Shallows, we come across a stranger whose husband died. She's asking for us to help her husband to rest in peace. Kill the walker version of him up in the Blue Palace, which is where we're conveniently headed already. It's at this point in the game where we can start to make choices about what kind of person we'll be, a saint or a sinner. In this case, if we help the woman or kill her, the result is basically the same. We can get a code to a vault to get valuable loot, and if we find her husband and help him to rest in peace, we find a note telling us that the bastard killed his own children to protect them from this world. As we explore the Shallows looking for the Blue Palace, we also find lots of notes left behind by the tower, specifically warning us against a woman by the name of May Benoit, who apparently betrayed the tower. You see, the tower is a community of survivors led by a woman named Mama, and her second in command, Georgia. These notes that we find are written by Mama, welcoming all to come to the tower. The tower is committed to order and community. Everyone has to contribute, and they don't tolerate dissenters. And apparently they have close to 1,000 people in the tower. The operations at the tower are so advanced that they control the movements of walkers around the city to accommodate their supply routes. And every day at the exact same time, the tower rings bells all around the city to stir up the walkers. We don't want to get caught in that. Opposing the tower and its strict ideals are the Reclaimed, a group led by a man named JB, who runs a radio station playing jazz music and preaching his message denouncing the tower and their strict ways. Apparently their leader, JB, once lived in the tower, but he was exiled, and so he took it upon himself to pillage tower supply routes. And as the tower exiled more and more people, they rallied behind JB, thus forming the Reclaimed. The Reclaimed also have weird rituals where they hang people up by their feet before turning into walkers, and that's how we found Henri in the cemetery. And both sides, the tower and the Reclaimed, are fighting to get to the reserve before us. At the Blue Palace, we retrieve the microphone, and then we head back to the bus where we use the code Waterfall on Station 61 to contact somebody, presumably somebody from the military. This guy isn't too friendly though. He knows who we are. He knows we're the tourist. He says he has ears everywhere and he knows a lot of things, but when we ask him about the reserve, he gets agitated. He doesn't trust us yet, but he knows something. When we push him further, trying to get answers, he says this.
I'm telling you, I don't know anything about what's going on up there. There's no reason to track me down.
What do you mean by up there? If you're not up here with the rest of us,
Where are you?
That's classified. You don't have clearance. In fact, I don't even know why I'm talking to you right now. What the fuck was that? They coming for you? Shit.
He abruptly ends the call while we investigate the mysterious light. The light that flashed on is by a locked grave, and to get the key we have to go through this underground crypt to a nearby street that has some supplies and the key, obviously left here by whoever turned that light on. Getting back to the locked gate, we find a note inside of a grave addressed to our late friend Henri from none other than May Benoit, the same woman that the Tower propaganda warned us against trusting. Apparently May and Henri have been working together to help those that have been exiled from the Tower.
Henri, I found 2 more exiles wandering around the northwest corridor today. Was able to get them to safety, get them supplies for a few days. They said it's getting ruthless on the other side of the tower wall. More people exiled every week.
Henri and May have also been executing tower cache raids together. May finds the location of the intel and leaves it in the casket with the lantern on, and then Henri goes to do the raid, collect the intel, and leave it in the casket with the lantern off. To help Henri find the cache, May always leaves him with a drawing made by May's own daughter, Umbra. This must be the family that Henri begged us to help. To honor his dying wish, let's go help her out, I guess. Let's go do this raid and collect this cache. The first bit of intel that we collect tells us that May has the waterfall key, which sounds like a key that we're gonna need to get to the reserve. When we get to the intel, May responds telling us that she knows Henri is dead, but she's willing to meet with us and possibly keep working together. We meet her in the churchyard not far from the cemetery, and here we get to make a game-altering decision. We can choose to help May with these tower raids and continue the story like normal, or we can kill her right now. A saint or a sinner. If we choose to kill her, she drops the waterfall key that we need to get to the reserve, and we get to skip all of the tower raid missions for the rest of the story. But if we keep her alive, she'll keep drawing us those drawings made by her daughter to keep going on these raids and keep getting valuable supplies and intel. If we continue working with May, we learn that her husband Gary Benoit was executed by the tower. They made him take the walk, as they call it. They made him walk off the top of the tower, dropping 45 stories to his death. He was accused of being a cannibal, but according to May, this was a lie made up by Georgia.
You question anything Georgia does? She will manufacture whatever she can to turn the tower against you. She's got everyone afraid. So I got my hands on something they desperately need. The reserve key. And we got out of there. To get the key, I had to hurt someone. Real bad. A dear friend. I almost killed her.
While helping May with her raids, our radio friend, whose name is Casey, decides that he wants to talk to us. He sounds desperate. He wants us to go get him a pump flow regulator, and in exchange, he'll tell us everything he knows about the reserve. I wonder what he needs that for. When we deliver the first flow pump regulator, he tells us a bit more about his situation.
The reserve is real, but you already knew that, right? What you don't know is that I am in it. It's an old military bunker built in the 50s or 60s. Right after the flood, the National Guard used it as a staging area to distribute disaster relief supplies. But once the dead started walking and things really went to shit, I had no choice but to get inside and hunker down. I thought I was safe for a little while, but now I'm fucked. The floodwater up top was too much for the reserve's pump system. It malfunctioned, and now the whole place is on lockdown. I'm stuck in the comm room. I'm running out of time. I need to get out of here, soon. God, I can't wait to see the sky again.
So to get to the reserve, we need to help Casey before it's too late. With Casey's help, we calibrate the flow pump regulator and install it near the church that's not too far from us. Next thing we know, we're out collecting another flow pump regulator and installing it at a different location near the church. And while on these missions to collect flow pump regulators, we have a few run-ins with tower troops and reclaimed. In one instance, we end up being a mediator between the tower and the reclaimed, who have kidnapped a boy for killing one of the reclaimed's daughter. The reclaimed wants us to execute him and then help them attack the nearby tower outpost. On the other hand, one of the tower's leaders is the boy's brother, and he's begging us to save him. In another instance, we run into a reclaimed soldier that wants us to deliver a message to his boyfriend, who is still with the tower. Upon delivering the message, he gives us one back. Apparently, they want to run away together. But as we go to deliver this message, another tower soldier stops us and gives us a fake message to deliver. She believes that the two need to end their relationship before they run off and get themselves killed. In both of these instances, we're given choices to make, and those choices have consequences. Are we a saint or a sinner? We still need that key from May, and we need to find another flow pump regulator. But while Casey tries to locate one by listening in on the radio, he asks us to do him a favor. Something's been bothering him. Apparently not too long ago, his whole squad left him alone in the reserve to see if they could fix the pump issues. The problem is they never came back, so he sends us to Rampart High School to see what happened to his squad. He mostly cares about Kenneth, his one friend in the squad. At the high school, we find 3 of his squad mates dead with notes suggesting that they didn't really care much for Casey. They called him weak. But his friend Kenneth, by some miracle, we find him alive, and he gives us this message for Casey.
Tell him he's a good guy. The guilt, it's not his. Tell him to let it all go. What happened at the bunker? He needs to wipe his brain clean. Tell him Kenneth said things right. Killed Trent, Jess, and Foster. Okay?
This guilt he's talking about. Apparently, their squad killed dozens of innocent people who tried to get into their bunker. This was soon after the dead started to walk, and they had orders to not let any civilians into the bunker. Casey, of course, didn't shoot at first, but afraid of their squad leader, he ended up firing a few blind shots, and that must be what's eating him up. Before we go, Kenneth in his foggy and confused state has one more request from us.
That's mighty nice of you, Uncle Tommy. Before you go to the bowling alley, blow my fucking brains out, yeah? That's the only way to remain human all the way to the end, right?
Back at the cemetery, we tell Casey what we found, and he confirms that the story about the massacre was true.
I should have done something to stop it, but I didn't. I stood there, a coward. And now I don't sleep. I have a nervous twitch in my right hand that gets more pronounced every day, and the guilt is like a 10-ton weight crushing my chest. The image, I can't get it out of my head. I'm worried it'll be there forever. And I keep thinking, was it me? Did I shoot those bullets?
You never know for sure, Casey.
That's exactly right, tourist. And I can't fucking deal with that.
After the brief therapy session, Casey reminds us that without the key to the reserve, all of this work is a waste. We need that key, and we know exactly who has it. May sends us to find another cache of supplies, but this time it's a big one with lots of supplies, and the intel that we find is pretty big as well. Apparently the tower has a growing list of over 50 people that they plan to exile, and this time they don't just want to kick them out of the tower. Georgia wants to make them all take the walk.
Anyone protest, they take the walk. No time for bullshit. Tired of feeding JB's army with dissidents. Elimination, the better option.
While planning this massacre, the tower is also preparing to assault the reserve. They plan to hit it within the next couple of days, which means that we need to hurry and get that last flow pump regulator and that key. The next day, we find a note from May asking us to meet her in person again. She has a plan and she needs our help. She wants to save the people that Georgia plans on exiling. All she needs is a big distraction.
I think the reserve is going to provide the opening I need. Georgia and the tower are so obsessed with it, don't think they'll be concerned with what I'm doing for a short while. And with the reclaimed salivating over it too, once the reserve is unlocked and revealed to the world, courtesy of you, there's gonna be a bloodbath. You can count on that. And that's when I make my move.
She goes on to say that she's gonna leave us the waterfall key in the coffin. She doesn't care much for the reserve, she just wants to help these people. She even offers to let us join her if the chaos at the reserve ends up being too much. We run back to tell Casey the good news, we're gonna have the key soon. Now all we need is the final part to fix the pump, and he's heard that it might be in a place called Bastion, a hotbed of conflict for the tower and the reclaimed. Heading into the duplex that Casey told us about, we find a man sitting there with the flow pump regulator that we need.
Let's start with a formal introduction. You are the tourist, and I am Jean-Baptiste. JB for short. There now, we can proceed to matters of more profound consequence.
So this is the guy that we've been hearing preach on the radio, the leader of the reclaimed. He tells us about the reclaimed, and we get to ask him about their gory rituals. Apparently it all started when the tower sent someone to try and kill JB. Of course, JB survived, and he tells us what he did with the assassin.
And I dragged his body about a mile all the way to the southern bump, which at the time was the most highly trafficked exit from the tower. I found an old oak, hung him upside down from it so his lifeblood would spill rapidly into the soil, and upon his chest I pinned a note that read, "Keep 'em coming." And just like that, I became the most feared boogeyman Nola has seen since the Axeman.
The Axeman, by the way, was a real-life serial killer from the early 1900s who's known for murdering at least a dozen people in New Orleans. So here's JB, the leader of the Reclaimed, giving us exactly what we need. He just has one request for us.
I am a firm believer in the greatness of humankind, our ingenuity, our art, our towering scientific achievements. This reserve nonsense, even if the rumors about what may be inside it exceed our wildest dreams, the bounty will only prolong our addiction to survivalism as the only path in life. It will stifle our creativity. It will eventually lead to our withering doom. Now, this is the proposal that I have for you. Continue your search for the reserve, and when you unearth it, which I have the utmost confidence you will, destroy it. These 4 numbers will disable the entire flood contingency system. Mother Nature will rage through the reserve and take care of the rest.
He hands us a code that he found on a dead body in the Rampart High School, probably on one of the dead bodies of Casey's squad mates. And this code will allow us to flood the waters and destroy the reserve. But why? Because he believes that humanity should stop trying to survive by finding things, but start living by using science and human ingenuity to create a new world. And to do that, he needs us to destroy the reserve. As we exit the duplex, we run into a woman who introduces herself as Georgia, second in command to Mama at the tower.
Maybe you heard of me, maybe not. I could give 2 shits. What does concern me is the man inside the building you just stepped out of. The time has come to silence him once and for all. Cut off the head that won't shut up. Rest of the Reclaimed fools will fall back in line. Then us tower folk can get back to doing what's right.
She gives us a choice: go up there and kill JB for her, or she's gonna kill us. And as we go up to talk to JB again, we have to decide: kill him or help him kill Georgia. If you kill JB, from then on, the tower patrols will be friendly to you. And if you kill Georgia, the Reclaimed will be friendly to you, and you'll still be able to listen to JB's radio station, where he'll play a special message thanking you for helping him. Back at the cemetery, the signal light is on, and inside the coffin is the reserve key that May promised us, along with a note and a drawing trying to persuade us to go with her. We contact Casey, put together the final flow pump regulator, and go to an old shed nearby to install it. The key was needed to unlock this shed. Back at our base, Casey starts up the pumps, and suddenly a light appears in the sky.
Both sides are gonna descend on this place like flies on shit. I need to get the fuck out of here. Now. God damn it, tourist. I still can't open the door.
Despite starting the pumps, there's a manual control that Casey needs us to go turn on in order to completely free him from the reserve. We need to go help him and get our loot before the whole city descends on the reserve. On our way over there, we find a dead girl and oh shit.
I didn't want to die. Forgive me, please.
Who died?
Umbra. She ran after her mom as they were taking her away. Right into the middle of everything.
Turns out that the exiles May wanted to help turned against her in hopes that the tower would take them back. But they were wrong, and in the scrabble, Umbra died. We don't have time for this right now. We need to get to the church and the reserve sitting underneath it. Outside of the church, there's a war going on between the Reclaimed and the tower. If we'd killed JB, the tower would be fighting with us. And if we'd killed Georgia, the Reclaimed would be fighting with us. In any case, we sneak our way into the church, and as we do, we hear screams outside. One side or the other is winning, depending on the choices that you made previously in the game. Inside the church, Casey is calling for us. We get to the controls and the horrible truth comes out.
I'm not sure how much time we have left before my room is underwater. Activating the pumps just fucked everything up. The room is filling up fast. Look, I need you to redirect the blood flow to the armory, and quick. Look, I know I promised you all the weapons you'd ever be able to carry, but I'm sorry. We have to let them go.
You have 3 choices here. If we save Casey, we'll be able to loot some of the supplies from his room, and we can see the armory flooded with all of that loot floating around out of reach from us forever. But if we flood the comm room...
What did you do? You fucking psychopath! I trusted you! Oh, I hope you burn in hell! No, not like this! Not like this!
And then when you get to the reserve, you can see his dead body floating around in the flooded comm room. And at the same time, we get the whole reserve to ourselves. More loot than we could possibly carry. The third option is to use the code that JB gave us and flood the entire thing. Whatever you choose, immediately afterwards, there's a bell ring. And as we run to see what's happening, there stands May, heartbroken over her daughter's death, threatening to ring the bells and call all of the walkers in the city to come and end the war going on outside.
Didn't you hear them out there? Needlessly slaughtering each other when they should be unified. They have always been stupid and cruel, even before the world went to shit.
If we let Casey live, he begs us to stop her, and we can either encourage her or try to persuade her not to do it. At the end, Casey begs us to shoot her for him, and if we wait long enough, Casey shoots her himself. If Casey isn't alive, we have the same option to either encourage her to ring the bells or to stop her. And if she ends up not ringing the bells for any reason, we can always do it ourselves. And if the bell rings by her hand or ours, we can hear the walkers outside descend down on the two factions fighting. People start banging on the doors, begging to be let in, but there's nothing we can do, even if we wanted to. There's so many choices here at the end of the story. It's not just about being either a saint or a sinner. No matter what choice you make, you end up being both a saint and a sinner. Just depends who you ask. After looting what you can from the reserve, we get outside and escape on a little boat. We get to survive for another day. And with that, you're ready to play The Walking Dead Saints and Sinners Chapter 2 Retribution. Now, there is an optional DLC for the first game called Aftershocks, which consists of you going on more raids for supplies and eventually finding a little piece of the reserve stashed away somewhere in the city. It doesn't contain much story, so I didn't include it in this video. It's more just optional endgame content to hold us over until Retribution. Of course, I haven't actually played Retribution yet, so I could be wrong. And if I am, I'll make a separate video covering the story and Aftershocks so that everyone's prepared. And if you guys want to see me stream Retribution, I'll be playing it here on stream on YouTube for the first few days after the release. So subscribe for that. Thanks for watching.